Welcome back to another exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. I'm your host, Gary Miliefsky, and I am the publisher of Cyber Defense Magazine. Sitting in the hot seat today is a very special guest. He's the CTO of XTN Cognitive Security. That's XTN-lab.com. One of my favorite folks to talk about the area of fraud prevention. Guido Ronchetti is here today. Guido, welcome back.
Hello, Gary. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. So, you guys are a global company, but you started in Italy. And there's something different about how Italians think about this issue of fraud prevention. You were telling me earlier. Tell me, thinking out of the box?
Yeah, I think that Italy is famous for one thing at least, apart from food and other stuff.
Great food, by the way.
Great food.
Yeah.
It's a very aggressive place for frauds. So in Italy, there is quite an aggressive cyber fraud.
So if I'm a bank, and I have a mobile app, and I've got, or maybe even it's on different platforms. It's Android, iPhone, maybe even the Windows Phone, a web experience for Windows and Apple Mac users. And I'm really worried that there's been so much identity theft worldwide, especially in the U.S. too. As Willie Sutton, the famous U.S. bank robber, said, "Why do I rob banks? Because that's where the money is." So the banks are probably the first target for fraud, I would think, to get the most money. Maybe e-commerce second. These identities are in the dark web. They're already stolen. So how can you help a bank who may already have a customer who's been compromised?
So we have what we call the Cognitive Security Platform. That is a platform addressing different layers of analysis. Two of these layers are focused on the endpoint, first of all, and on the digital identity of the user. We think that these two things have to work together for different reasons. First of all, that the digital identity of the user is composed of behavior, interacting with the service on one side, and authentication on the other side. I'm thinking about multi-factor authentication as a cryptographical element to authenticate yourself.
So it's really me because there's some multi-factor auth that you've added to this whole environment. You make it easy. Is this an SDK? Is it a toolkit? How do I plug? If I'm a bank and I want to use your stuff, how do I plug it in?
So we deliver our technology in an SDK that have to be integrated inside our client's app. And then we have a server-side component that provide the evaluation part of the flow. And as I was saying, I think that we have a very complete view of what is going on. I mean, part of the authentication goes on inside the mobile device, but you have to guarantee that the security of that device is monitored as well while the authentication takes place. And this is what we do, monitoring the environment and adding the behavioral factor to the usual multi-factor authentication flow.
So you're keeping an eye on certain behavioral parameters to ensure that it's really me.
Exactly.
And so if someone just stole my password, that's not enough anymore if the client, the bank, has integrated your toolkit or SDK into their platform.
Exactly.
Is it going to speed up or slow down transactions? Is it transparent? How do you deal with scalability?
It is absolutely transparent. Our first goal is to minimize the impact on the user experience. I mean, you can use your user password, let's say in a mobile app, maybe to reserve your car, let's say going outside a financial environment. And as far as there is no risk in the device, that will be enough. But let's say you use your device and someone is trying to do the same from your device or from another device using your credentials. This will be an anomaly from a behavioral perspective. And that's where our technology comes in. We will be able to know that there is an anomaly and ask you for an additional challenge. And this will be the multi-factor authentication.
Do you have to report my device is stolen, or you've already added the multi-factor, which helps because they may have the old-fashioned password, but or is the multi-factor through an SMS? I mean, how do you do it if the device is stolen?
So if the device is stolen, we will be able to verify your identity using biometrics as well, and we will be able to recognize your passive biometrics interaction with the device.
Fingerprint, facial recognition?
Fingerprint or facial recognition, as well as passive biometrics. So the way you handle your handset and the way you are shaking it and looking at it and so on.
So you're actually collecting some data for the bank or whoever for their app that's running that allows you to create not just a fingerprint, but a behavioral fingerprint that includes, for example, if, heaven forbid I had Parkinson's and my phone always shakes a certain way, you would know it's me. And a hacker is smoothly moving the phone, and that's not the same feeling.
Exactly. That's
or I always move it to the left and the right before I type something in.
Or yet, let's say you see very well, and so you have a certain position and distance from the handset, or otherwise you probably keep it with a different angle. These are all features. It's a small example of what we consider.
Do you have a patent on this?
Not in the US.
No, but you have an international. And so you've invented a way to really know it's me without me having to figure out how to help you.
And that's part of our behavioral technology. And what I think it's quite different for the XTN approach is that we know that passive biometrics have problems with false positives because it's statistical view of your identity. So we have added a lot of other behavioral related information as well. So
if we take a picture of me and you hold it over the phone, you know it's not me.
So let's say we are considering your handset as part of your digital identity. So the identity of your handset is part of this equation. Your geolocation, your Wi-Fi output you are connected to is part of this evaluation flow.
The chipset has EMEI, other identifiers.
Yeah.
My cellular carrier. What if someone's on a different carrier trying to pretend they're me?
Exactly.
So you really collect a lot of data.
Yeah, we collect hundreds of parameters, and we use them to minimize false positive and having the better accuracy possible in recognizing anomalies or usual behavior as well. So
have you measured the accuracy? Do you have numbers, or you're just thinking, we've done it for a lot of companies who probably don't even want to name their names. They just want to be happy that it's harder to steal identity.
Consider XTN is not the classical startup in that sense. So we are in production for many years. So we started our experience in 2008, working with one of the top 20 banks in Europe. And then in 2014, when we actually founded XTN as a standalone legal entity, we bring there our expertise, and starting from that, we added modules. And all these technologies in production in some of the biggest banks in Europe. And right now we are invading, let me say, US.
That's great.
Because we think that we had a good story to tell regarding our success in Europe, and we want to bring the same kind of technology to the US.
Excellent. And Banco Santander, Bank Santander is big in the US now. TD Bank is in Canada and the US. A lot of banks are working their way into the US. So you may have a customer in Europe that says, yeah, I've got offices in the US and I need this there too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if we expand your technology into other fields, you talked about a car app like an Uber or a Lyft. Are there other places you think this technology will help reduce risk and prevent fraud?
Yeah, so from an eye perspective, let's say we can be extremely useful everywhere there are privacy impacting data or there are critical security data as well.
Privacy impacting and critical security.
Exactly.
Examples?
Let's say a medical related app that is providing the medical records.
Doctors or patients,
Exactly.
Pharmaceutical prescriptions.
Exactly.
Okay.
This data have to be protected while they are accessible in an endpoint, for example. And this is part of what we can monitor, guaranteeing that the endpoint is secure while the end user access this data for that.
A lot of hotels are starting to offer your mobile phone to be the room key to your room once you've registered. So you just go to your room, and I guess you have to enable NFC or Bluetooth, and which is vulnerable, but they believe it's your identity and it'll open your hotel door. I'm a little nervous about not having an old-fashioned key. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, me too. So that's exactly the point. I think that you cannot provide secure digital identity verification, and that's what you do when you try to unlock your door with your phone, without being sure that this multi-purpose device is protected while your digital.
So Guido, where are you going with this fraud prevention technology? I mean, it's got to keep expanding, right? Are there other places to take it? Are you offering some new innovative things? Do you have some vision that others haven't really thought about that you're rolling out this year that you want to share with our viewers and listeners?
So, as I was previously saying, there are 3 layers of analysis. The first one is focusing on the business content of the transaction. It's something more related to financial environment, let's say, and it's about analyzing what is passing through inside the transaction. Let's say the payee, the amount, the day, or the hour of the day when you perform the transaction.
So business transaction. Then you were saying second layer was endpoint?
Second layer was endpoint.
Where you have this SDK and anyone can plug in.
Continuous evaluation. And the third layer is the multi-factor authentication.
Okay, multi-factor auth.
Exactly,
Got it.
with adaptivity. So considering the risk related to the endpoint as a trigger to require multi-factor authentication.
I see. So it's not always triggered.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's where user experience.
Like
can
if I'm in
benefit
Brazil
from.
right now, which I'm not, you're going to trigger multi-factor auth to say this isn't really Gary's phone. And then they're not going to get the message because the phone call goes to my phone. And I've proven that it's me.
Exactly.
That's one method. Is it SMS multi-factor?
We
Or
are
do you use
using-
other methods?
We're using push notifications.
Push notifications. More secure?
Yeah, from one perspective, it's more secure the SMS that have these SIM swap attacks that are going on everywhere. That is
Oh, SIM swap attack. So someone could actually fake a lot more. If we're in the same proximity and they knew me, maybe I'm a big executive at a bank, you're going to protect against this new kind of exploit of spoofing my identity or the MAC address of my phone.
We are not relying on SIM for that reason.
That's fantastic.
And on the other side, it's lots better for the user experience because usually on mobile apps you are used to receive push notifications.
And you have to go back and forth.
Exactly.
You lose context. Oh no, it's 8 characters and I can only think at 3 at a time. And so 2 minutes later, you're back in your app.
Exactly. And we can use a data channel to communicate as well. So no code to be inserted. And this is why we are unfishable in that sense. So the end user don't
Smishable too.
unfishable. Yeah.
Well, have you heard of smish? SMS phishing? I just learned it. We've got smishing, phishing, voicemail phishing, SMS phishing. So as long as you have your own private data channel, nobody's going to phish your users.
The user itself cannot leak its own OTP, and that's the important point.
That's
You
fantastic.
cannot rely on the end user to be secure in that sense.
So you guys at XTN are a little bit paranoid about how you develop this?
Just a little bit. And so what we are looking at is continuous identity validation during the interaction with the server side. So one of the features we have already released and we are promoting is the ability to have continuous ID going on each interaction between the mobile app and the server component as a second factor authentication. So if your app is not the right one, will not be able to authenticate itself with your backend with a second factor going on under the hood.
That's fantastic. So you're, again, better that you be paranoid for me so I don't have to worry and I can relax and do my banking or hop in my car and get into my hotel room and not worry that someone else has spoofed me.
Exactly. No
Fantastic.
user experience impact.
No user experience impact. Where do you want to send our viewers and our listeners to learn more about your company as you're expanding globally and throughout the US?
So we have right now a sales representative in the US based in Chicago, and of course we have a website that is xtn-lab.com where you can find all our information and you can contact us to being in contact with our sales as well.
Sounds great. So Guido, this has been a wonderful hot seat interview, and I'm going to tell our viewers, check out xtn-lab.com. If you want to get one step ahead of the threat in fraud prevention, it doesn't matter what industry you're in anymore because of, the Internet of Things, our smartphones, we're all trying to use our devices to communicate. It's got to go through some fraud prevention method, some new way of authenticating users, and these guys have figured out the best way to do it. Check them out and then come back next time for another exciting episode of Cyber Defense TV. Thank you.